Hello, and I'd rather hope to give you another episode today of councillors behaving very well. Sadly, that's not to be because the councillors weren't behaving very well at the climate emergency meeting. In actual fact, the behaviour was pretty extreme, I thought. Some of it rude, some of it just angry. And for the first time, I heard the gavel being banned. So what happened? Well, to give you a clue as to maybe what's going to come a bit further on, we should start by watching one of the early little clips. Not a problem in itself, but just a warning flag, I think, for what comes later. Andy Pearce was the chair of the meeting, and just after we started, our mayor, who was around the table with everyone else, said this.
Just to mention that 25.2 and 25.3 are items related to the mayor and the mayor.
Okay.
What's to come is all about working groups versus subcommittees. Now, it's really boring stuff for those people that are not interested in meetings, but it's all to do with the status of the group. And a sort of working group is a rough collection of people who can work together. If they want to, they can even do minutes and things for it if they want it sort of to be recorded and become official. But a working group is not a proper subcommittee. It doesn't exist on the YouTube account, stuff like that. And there are some differences of opinion. It is a bit long, it's about 5 minutes or so, but it gradually steams upwards. Because some people want something that other people don't. And then they get into things like the rules of the meetings. And it would appear that one council member's recollection of the past is somewhat at odds from the others. You'll just have to watch and see. But it features our good friend, Wendy Brooks.
22, to consider a recommendation to full council on whether to reinstate the Standing Orders and Policies Working Group as a subcommittee. Wendy.
I think most of you know that because there's now much more interest in this and because it is such an important committee, I think I propose that we reinstate it as a subcommittee.
Just a comment, I'll come to you, Ms. Seema. No one's ever questioned the importance of the work that Standing Orders and Policies does. That's never been in question. It has at various times in its history been a working group or a subcommittee, and that's all we're really here to decide. I'm in two minds. I have no strong opinion. Ms. Seema.
I was just going to ask, what's the advantage of it being a subcommittee rather than a working group? What is the reason why you wanted it to be a...
It gives it a little bit more status. It means you meet regularly. You have to meet in person. You get the minutes. It means that it feeds back to F&G.
Well, it does.
It is, I think, because it isn't something like we've got a transport working group, which is about a specific issue, but Standing Orders and Policies is always going to be there. It's a permanent need, I think. It's not just something that we had a nest working group. There will come a point where that working group will cease to exist. Standing Orders and Policies will always exist. And I think that's really my main point.
So Standing Orders and Policies has never been like those other temporary ad hoc working groups. It's always had a function. Whether it's a working group or a subcommittee, it reports to F&G and makes recommendations to F&G. F&G then weigh those up and they make recommendations to full council, because if the recommendation is to change policy, there are no delegations. So ultimately, any recommendations end up at full council for approval. So Standing Orders has, whilst the work is undeniably important, has no delegations to decide anything. It makes recommendations to F&G to consider, which makes onward recommendations to full council. So the proceedings in F&G and full council are always live streamed and recorded.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think that for me, that's the only difference between, or major difference between a working group and a subcommittee, is that a subcommittee is live streamed and recorded and all that. I think if we turn it into a subcommittee, it's just more work for our staff.
Why?
Because then they have to sort out the live streams and the recordings and all that. Because we can have minutes anyway if we
Yeah.
want it minuted as a working group.
Well, hang on a minute. I mean, in terms of
Yep.
full work for our staff, up until last year, we always had it as a subcommittee.
No, we didn't, Wendy. I've just said.
No, there wasn't. There was for 1 year we had it as a subcommittee.
At various times in its history, it's been both.
I don't understand why people want to. I don't understand the arguments against it.
Right.
I know there are subcommittees that are frequently in quora, have very, very poor attendance, that carry on limping on as subcommittees.
Wendy, can you
Standing
just
orders
make
and
the point about
policies-
standing orders?
Orders and policies is an important committee.
Excuse me. Can you just make your point about standing orders and policies and stop with the observations on other subcommittees and what you think of them? We know what you want. Just make your arguments. If you don't understand someone else's argument, you don't need to. All right. Concentrate on your arguments and your justification for it and leave it there. Bernie.
Okay, I came on to this working group, I think earlier this year, because the only people involved were Wendy and Andy, and it was struggling. So I came on just really so we had someone else. I feel that if we make it a subcommittee, we're then going to go back to however, okay, we've got people who've put the names down to join it, but are we then going to go back to the situation we have with other committees where we're struggling to become quorate? At the moment, as a subgroup, we meet, we discuss any recommendations, go back to F&G. Generally, we sit here with Sarah, we have the policies up on the whiteboard and we go through them, and Sarah edits them as we go through them. So to me, it seems to work very well as a working group.
So let's have a vote.
Let the members decide whether they want to function as a working group or a subcommittee. And then depending on what the majority of members decide who have put up their hands to join what is currently a working group, if they wish it to become a subcommittee, then it can come back here. And that would be my proposal.
Second that proposal. All right.
All right, go on then, but we've had a proposal that's been seconded.
I actually think that Bernie has the best point, which is obviously being in quora. And I think that is looking at what's going on in some other subcommittees at the moment.
Right, can we?
Excuse me,
No.
I'm allowed to speak.
Can you concentrate on
Yes,
this
I will.
subcommittee?
I will.
Because
I will.
right, please, Wendy, I'm chairing this meeting. The agenda item is about standing orders and policies. It is not about your or anybody else's observations on other committees and subcommittees. Can we keep the focus on this subcommittee stroke working group, please?
I think what is going on in other subcommittees
Right.
is important in terms of experience, that if frequently we have to cancel meetings because they're in quora, then that isn't a very good look.
No, it isn't.
So I'm saying that I think Bernie is making a very valid point about it being a working, because only, as you say, people put their hands up and say they want to be involved, but when reality kicks in, frequently they don't or they can't. So yeah, let the group itself decide what they want. Yeah.
Right, so we've had a proposal that's been seconded. All in favour, please.
Oh, one other thing I wanted
Sure.
to say is actually standing orders and policies do make policy. They don't just review legislation, but
No, they don't.
our parks and ponds policy has very much been written by us.
Wendy, they don't make policy, they make recommendations on policy. That was the point I made.
Yes,
Right, I said it has no delegations to make decisions.
no subcommittee does.
On policy, no. Other subcommittees have delegations to make decisions on other things, including expenditure. Okay, but standing orders and policies never has. So other subcommittees do have delegated authority, including on expenditure.
I must admit, I got a bit confused then, because I thought the whole point of all that dialogue was because Wendy wanted it to become a subcommittee when it is currently a working group. And at the end, she's changed her mind completely, and now she wants it to be a working group, which is what it started out as. Did I get that wrong? Well, we're now moving on to something that involves looking at stuff on screens. And as usual, Wendy can't find it.
24.1A fish for £1,500. Any comments on this one?
Is it in the members area?
No, they've each got their individual folders in the agenda, Wendy, which is what we agreed earlier on. Because there's multiple documents for each application, they would each have a subfolder. So if you go under F&G and scroll down, you'll find a folder called 24.1A, Lowestoft Community Church Fish.
Now, they're not talking about fish, as in the sea or in fingers. They're talking about fish as in food in school holidays. So that's what they're talking about. And sadly, Wendy gets a bit strung up again on the IT. So just to explain how this works, if you've got a Word document and it's not protected, you can change it. So you could remove someone's name, address and phone number. If you've got a different type of document, and then typically a PDF, the best that some people can do is to put a big black blob over the top. I mean, you know, the electronic version of a marker pen. And poor Wendy is convinced that the application form they've got isn't valid because it hasn't been signed, when it was made perfectly clear that it was signed, but the officials have just sort of removed it so that they don't share the applicant's details. She doesn't get it at all. And you can't really imagine something so trivial as this causing a problem, but it does.
Wendy.
There's a couple of things. I mean, I'm not against it at all, but I don't think they've actually managed to get their constitution signed and sent in. Because I think this is the one where they've just sent an unsigned piece of paper to say we are a fully constituted group, but I don't think
There's a constitution on there. Or am I looking at the wrong one?
is that
No, it's under parochial.
It is that one. It says certified to be the constitution adopted by members on the 21st of September 2023. Unfortunately, it's not signed. There's no trustees' names in there, so that makes it a bit of a strange document. Maybe if we were, I mean, I don't have anything against this, so I propose we approve it as long as that's clarified, that actually we have to, you know, we see the constitution, or at least that piece of paper is signed.
Councillor Bagan waiting to come in, Chair.
Sorry, I'm just checking there. Right, so it is certified as having been signed 21st of September. The trustee names have been redacted in the version that's on the site, but it presumably came in unredacted to the office, did it? So can you confirm as members of staff that there was a trustee name in those boxes when it came in? Okay. Nasima.
Just gonna second.
Okay. So basically it did come in signed. It's just because it's gone up in a public area, the names of individuals have been redacted in the public document.
Yeah, but usually you see a black square, don't you?
Right. It's typed in redacted by our staff, Wendy, and Taylor's just confirmed it came in with a trustee's name in there.
Just to confirm why that is. If it comes in as a Word document, we can redact it by using redacted. If it comes in as a PDF, then it has to be the black boxes because you can't edit a PDF in any way.
Wendy.
Well, when staff do that in the future, could you please type in redacted where the signature is supposed to be so that we know?
They have done.
Not on the site, not on the one.
Wendy, it says redacted in those words. Date of meeting 21st of September 23, trustee redacted, trustee redacted.
Redacted is different from, look, that's what it looks like.
It came in with a name in there. Our staff have typed in the word redacted because the document is being uploaded to a public area. Right, so there was that.
Still prefer it if, because normally when things are redacted, we see it on the application form.
We don't need to see the names of the trustee. It came into the office. They have confirmed it came in with a name in there. Right. Listen,
The quick comment that I get what you're saying, Wendy, and normally when it's redacted, it's got like a black box on
and
it.
the
so-
reason has just been explained.
Sorry, I didn't
There's a
get that.
different approach to Word and PDF documents because a Word document you can put the black box. A PDF you can't edit. So it depends on what format the document has come into the office as to whether they do the black box or they type in the word redacted.
The grant awarding policy is a PDF, and that's been redacted with a black box.
Right. You've had the explanation from the staff. If you want a separate conversation about general approach to redacting documents before they're uploaded to the area, can we cover that separately, please? But it came in with a date and the trustee's identity on there for the decision. So it has come in from the applicant as a full application, signed and dated. Constitution, sorry, not application. So do we, right, and now I've lost my thread again. Did we have a proposal? Wendy proposed subject to it being signed, yeah? Did we have?
Seconded.
Right, okay, all in favour, please. Thank you.
And now we move on, and she's still confused, bless her. But now she's actually sort of getting grumpy with the other people too. People are trying to help, and she's just away with the fairies, I'm afraid. I'm getting seriously worried that so much of the committee time is taken up with total rubbish that really it just doesn't even warrant being discussed. Picking holes in things, moaning about things, and then winding Andy up. Andy then gets a bit stroppy. She then returns. Oh, it just goes on and on. Watch this bit.
Wendy.
No, I don't think it was. I can't remember. We'd have to look at the notes if the notes exist on the working party. If we actually made a recommendation or we asked for it.
Well, we didn't.
I can't remember.
Well, I can actually. Wendy.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Right. Okay. So we're basically looking at something to do with, first of all, I believe that so far it's entirely up to the mayor and deputy mayor how they decide to do things like.
Right, but before we start,
See that as a problem.
yeah, before we start, there's three.
I can't find the agenda.
Right.
Just stop being so bad.
Can we have a bit of order, please, Wendy? Don't wave your hand at me. All right, we have three separate items on the agenda. We'll take them one by one.
Oh, that one. Yes.
Right.
All right.
So deal with the first one, please.
Okay.
25.1. If committees rather than full council will elect their own chairs from May 25. Leave the others till we come to the items.
Okay. I don't feel particularly strongly about this, but I don't like the way, I do think the committees should elect their own chair. I'm not going to have an argument about it. I just think, I don't see how full council, who maybe have never been to that committee, know nothing about it, because it becomes more of a kind of, shall we say, favoured people and favourite parties get in the posts. And I think it's better if the committee elects their own chair.
It gets a bit personal now.
Right, I'll come back on that one because actually I don't agree that it's favoured people or favourite parties, but it is an allegation that's been made in the past, usually by people when they're not successful in becoming chairs themselves. The fact is that we have a council that at the moment has got, yes, you have sat there in a meeting, Wendy, and said people vote for their mates and for members of their political party. So I am quite happy to come back with an observation of my own. If you don't like that observation, then don't make observations about the motivations of other people, all right? Because you invite scrutiny on yourself. The fact is, we have 10 members of this council who are members of one political party. We have 9 independents and we have 1 Green member. The chair, there are 7 posts that at the moment are elected by full council, the mayor, deputy mayor, and 5 committee chairs. At the moment, that split is 4 Labour and 3 independent, which broadly speaking mirrors the composition of the elected members. I certainly have not voted for mates of members of political parties because of that. I have voted for who I think will be the most suitable candidate. People, yes, Wendy, really. And people may be looking for different things, but I have told you before that the thing I am looking for is someone who will leave their personal likes, dislikes and biases at the door, treat every member in the room even-handedly and fairly, whether they like them personally or not, and the same with members of the public and outside organisations. That is all I look for. I don't look for other qualities like intelligence or cleverness, real or perceived. Other people may be looking for different things. All right? People will look for different things in a chair. So, if we are going to have people impugning the motivation and integrity of other councillors, then those councillors can make their own observations in return. So, do we have a proposal on whether to recommend this or to make it, or to recommend that we don't do this one way or the other to full council? Wendy, just then Nasima.
I know we're different from East Suffolk, but I don't know how East Suffolk elects. I don't even know if they really have there, apart from the scrutiny committee, how many committees they actually have, because they have the cabinet. I don't think the full council elects the cabinet, do they? I don't know. I don't think they do.
Can I just make the point there, Wendy? That,
can I finish?
Yeah, but before you do, can you be accurate, please? Because committees on East Suffolk Council is not the same as cabinet.
I know that.
So
I know that.
Right. So cabinet is appointed.
I know.
Right. So if you're going to compare us to, we're talking about committee chairs. All right. So on East Suffolk Council, you have committee chairs and you have a cabinet. Cabinet is appointed. Cabinet members are appointed, I believe, by leader. I think committee chairs are appointed based on proportionate votes for the party groups because they're structured down party lines. So there will be no comparison or analogy with a primary authority, district or county. Right. So we just have to decide what we want and what works for us.
Well, I propose that the committee chooses their own chair, because I think it's just better, because those people know what's involved. They might be familiar with some of the councillors. They know, you know, I just think it'd be better. I'm not saying it'd make a huge difference, but I do think the committee, I think the committee should choose its own chair.
Is anyone willing to second?
Oh. Need to explain what goes on here in terms of procedure. If you have a vote at a meeting like this, let's say 2 people are in favour and 2 people are against. Stalemate. Well, no, it's not, because the chair of the meeting then has a casting vote. So although it was technically like a draw, the chair decides who is going to be the winner. You can see where this one's going, can't you?
Okay, so we've had a proposal. We've had a proposal and it's been seconded. Certainly.
I'd like to make a counter proposal. I like the way it is now, where we elect the chairs at full council at the AGM. I think it's quite nice that at the AGM, it's a new civic year. The chairs are. No,
so can I just say, you can't make a counter proposal that directly contradicts one that's already been made, as I understand it. But if the proposal fails, then you can raise a fresh proposal at that point. But we can't have 2 proposals that directly contradict each other, as I understand it, before the first one's been voted on. Wendy?
Well, I'd also like, you know, to say that subcommittees elect their own chairs.
Yes, and
it's only the standing committees.
And that's right. And that's in accordance with standing orders.
It's only the standing committees. And I think the standing committees should also elect their chair on a at the committee. So that's what I'm saying.
So you've made that proposal, Wendy, and it's been seconded and understood. We don't need to repeat it. You've made your proposal. You've laid out your criteria. We don't need to keep going over it. We just need a vote. Right. All in favour, please. That's 2 in favour. Against? Abstentions? Great. So this is casting vote, isn't it? Well, I don't agree, so I can only go with the way I voted. I'd rather not be in that position, but
it's a recommendation to full council.
Yeah, I know what it is, Wendy. Thanks.
You don't have to.
She wasn't happy, and in fairness, Andy wasn't actually very happy at being in the position where he had to be the deciding factor. So, I mean, it is an awkward thing for the chair to have to actually sort of scupper someone else's plans by his vote counting more than anyone else's. But such is life in committees. But it didn't stop there.
It's a recommendation to full council that failed.
Yeah,
Right.
but it doesn't have to.
Wendy, you made a proposal, it didn't carry. Right. Do we have another proposal?
Yes,
Let's
I'd
see.
like to propose that we keep as is and we elect our chairs at the AGM.
Okay, I'll second. Okay, but yes, whichever proposal carries will go forward as a recommendation. Wendy, can you please stop chattering away in a meeting? All right, I get that you don't like the outcome. I'd rather not have been put in a position of exercising a casting vote, but it is a recommendation. You're quite right. We are not making the decision. Right, Nasima. Okay, and I'll second it. Right. All in favour of the counter proposal that we recommend to maintain the status quo to full council? Okay, that's three. So that will go forward as a recommendation to maintain the status quo, but then obviously there can be a fuller debate in full council when other members who aren't present today or either aren't in F&G or aren't present today can have their say.
I was just going to ask if our recommendation is that we stay as status quo, does it have to go to full council to be discussed? Because we're not changing anything.
Arguably not, unless you want a full debate because it concerns a full council process.
We then started a sort of debate about whether prospective mayors should do some sort of advance flagging of the things that they're in favour of and things that they're not, which seemed a little bit odd, I think, to most of the people at the meeting. But Wendy thought this was a good idea. And then it got round to sort of talking about that.
So do we have a proposal for or against this item? Okay, Wendy had a hand up first.
I'm curious as to why there is not more support for this idea, because it isn't about being political. It isn't about saying this is what I will do or anything like that. It's just basically a vision. And I think if anybody wants to do something, in my experience, they need to have a bit of a vision that they've thought about. And I don't see any harm in people like actually sharing that with fellow councillors, because you can get to, we might in a situation where we have two very, very different candidates with very, very different views of the way they see things. And it's just like, I don't know, I just feel this, it almost feels almost like, in some ways I could say that almost it's like China, that you don't have to make a statement, you just get shoved in. Okay. I can see why people feel it's such an onerous, terrible task. I just don't get it.
Could I respectfully...
In the same way as I don't,
Order.
Oh, wow.
Yes. We have this in every meeting, Wendy, where you sit there speculating on you don't get what other people think and why they think it. Can you please concentrate on putting your own argument and the reasons for it and allow other members to explain their own reasons? Don't speculate on why other people don't support something you said, because you don't know whether they support you yet because we haven't gone to a vote. Can you just concentrate on what proposal you're making and the reasons you're making it, and stop speculating on what other people do and making comparisons with China? All right, because we're not in China. If we were, you wouldn't have the freedom to do what you do. Paul.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I think thinking about the proposal that Wendy made, I think for transparency and openness, we should do this. It would help us formulate our ideas who we think would be best for the role. I mean, if we think about it, yesterday we had a meeting at the Climate Emergency Committee, and we're asking for personal statements from members of the public to be on our committee. So if we're doing it at that end, we should be doing it at the other end as well. That's my point.
That's a fair comment. So, yeah, they are standing to be non-councillor members, which don't have a defined role.
No.
So we're asking what they will bring to the table. The mayor has a defined role. So in terms of a vision, an individual would have limited capability to change the scope and nature and responsibilities of the mayor.
No, but what they could bring to the role as well.
Okay,
yeah,
that's fine. Understood. Nasima, do you have anything to add?
No.
No. Okay. So, Wendy, are you making a proposal that we do ask candidates from May next year to make a supporting statement before candidacies, put the teeth in, candidacies are put to the vote? That's your proposal. And are you seconded it, Paul? Okay. All in favour, please. Okay. Against? Abstain? Right, well, I'm going to exercise my casting vote that we don't go forward with a recommendation, but if Wendy wants to ask full council for it to be put on the agenda as a member for full council to consider separately, as with the earlier item, we can do so. And we then allow a full discussion and vote by all members as it does concern a full council process.
China? Comparing Lowestoft to China. Okay. Poor old Andy had to use his casting vote again. The look on his face was precious. But the casting vote meant that Wendy Brooks' proposal lost, which, to be honest, I think it deserved. But there we go. It can now move forward in a different way. I think we're going to leave it there because we've gone on for long enough with the snappy behaviour, and 2 gavels now, I note. What a weird meeting, and it would have been a great one to have been at. I must turn up for a few more of the meetings because I think it's about time I did one. Although, to be honest, whenever I do turn up in person at the meeting, everybody seems to behave better. I don't know whether that's me or whether it's just because it reminds them that the public are about. You look after yourselves. I'll see you on the next video, and just be grateful we're not in China. See ya.